Well, hello everyone and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. We'll be talking about the journeys and the joys we get in life from drinking tea. Have you ever thought about it? The amount of tea we drink today. But what does tea really do to you? And how does tea help you overcome your pain and find your joy? My guest will just be telling us about her own journey. Rui Liu. She's the founder of Grass People's Tree. She will share untold stories of the wild indigenous Asian tea that are made in tune with nature. She will talk about her tea from her home upbringing, from her childhood upbringing in China, and why these teas made her special. But what's extremely fascinating about my guest, Ray, is that she didn't always start her fascination on tea. She was a fashion model. At one time, she was one of the highest paid models in Asia. She modeled for brands like Chanel. And she also competed and won the Miss Universe of China. I'll be talking to her about her own journey, her own fascination with fashion, and how she's now turned that into understanding tea and what does tea really do for us. How does tea make us feel good? How does it help us to find our true wellness? Meet my guest, Rui Liu, as we share her stories from her childhood to her adventurous teens to what she's truly doing now, inspiring us to drink more tea. Meet Ray. Well, hello everyone and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today we'll be talking about all things tea, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because tea actually is a good way to calm yourself, reduce your pain, reduce stress, reduce anxiety. And I think people might think, what's Painless Universal got to do with tea? Well, I think I've just answered that question. My guest, Ray, she's all things tea, and she started this company, as I said in the intro. And she'll be talking to us about the company and why tea is such an important part of our life. Ray, how are you?
Thank you for having me. Hi, Anne.
Wow,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
thank you so
I'm good.
much. I am truly, truly honored to have you join me on this conversation. And you are such an amazing person. You've done so much, and people would just now probably people who know you now will probably just know you for tea because of all the
Mm.
marvelous tea you've done. But before we get into any of that, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and who is Ray?
I think Ray, first of all, I think Ray is a child of the mountains. So that's where I was born, and I was raised in southwest China where animals roam around freely. So are all of us, the children of the mountains. And I grew up in the generosity and the vastness of nature. And that's, if you ask me who I am, that's who I am. I'm a girl who climbs every single mountain that I could see. Very joyous, swimming with the water buffaloes and looking at the pelicans diving into the river and catching fish. So that's who I am. And where I came from, I went through a lot of places physically and also in other spheres. So I used to work in fashion since I was very young, 15. I was a model, mostly catwalk and a lot of other things. Um, I was also Miss Universe once. I did a lot of things. I also did production in fashion, in advertisement. I also studied at Central St. Martin's for art because I have such a passion for art and for expression. And then everything somehow happened and aligned and then got me back to tea somehow. And a friend of mine who is an American jazz singer, her name is China Moses. And she once said to me, she says, I didn't know I had the blues in me until I left America. And that sums it up for me about tea,
Yeah.
because I didn't know I had the tea in me until I left my home, that very specific region of China, and then lived all over the globe and ended up in London, where the tea culture isn't there anymore, and the tea house culture isn't there anymore. Is that connection with people and then connection with nature that wasn't quite there, available, accessible as much to me. And I realized the importance of tea and what tea brings to all of us. So that's, it feels like a circle. I traveled and come back to the point where I started, but with a very, very different perspective. It almost feels like I'm an outsider, but inwardly I'm still there, but it's different. So yeah, that's the journey in a nutshell.
No,
So somehow, yeah.
no, that's truly amazing because when you read about yourself, and I think it's just general in life, we always have go around the circle. I have this chronic
Mm,
illness and I went round it. I was always wanted to not do anything relating to my chronic illness. I said, it's too embarrassing. It's not me. It's not my calling. I want to focus on finance side. And I went the finance route, really did well. But at the same time, I always felt myself drawn back. Something always pulled me back to where this seat where I am today, because it's always like the empathy, the conversation, the bringing out the best of individuals, which you can't do in finance. Finance, so what I was doing at finance was just about making the deals happen and make things work. So
mm,
to your own story about your own journey, how you had this amazing life and still you went back to your true calling of nature, and this is the team connection. But let me
mm,
take you back to when you were the fashion world. What was it like? Because you were one of the highest earners in fashion in model in Asia. You were the face
mm.
of Chanel. You were Miss Universe China. What, when you look back on your life, what led you on this path of the fashion bit? What is it, what did you think there was anything in particular that told you that this is what you should be? Were you very tall and skinny, or what just led you? Was your family in fashion?
It was actually a joke my friends pulled. Like four of my best friends, they're all boys. They saw a advertisement on the newspaper saying we're selecting models, and it was the first regional that they held in Southwest China. And my friends, like you said, they're like, you're tall, and you look peculiar, and we just signed you up. So they signed me up without me knowing. I didn't know until one day I got a phone call from the headmaster to say, come to my office, there's a phone call for you. So asked me to go in for a casting. And I just went because it was actually quite a funny story. Two of my friends placed a bet on me losing, and then the other two placed a bet on winning. And I joined the winning team. I said, if I win this, let's split it and kick their ass. And so it was just like a joke, the teenage friends play.
Yeah.
And I just went on it, and I went on and win the regional and went on and win the national. And then within 3 months I was signed to agency in Beijing, and then I was signed to another agency in France, and I haven't even turned 16 then. So that was how everything got happened. And if you could only imagine a child who grew up in such a wild setting, and
Yeah.
then immediately you're thrown into a place where it's so different,
Mm.
so fast paced, so demanding. I spend my rent on airplanes. I live out of two suitcases for 6 7 years, all on my own, and then earning a lot of money but didn't know how to spend it, what to do with it. There was a lot to process. Now when I think back, I slowly start to unpack what just happened. But actually when you're in there, it's very hard to even comprehend what was happening, particularly as a very young child, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially if your family didn't come from that background as well. So it's just, this is something you just started as a joke, and all of a sudden you became this thing. The Miss Universe bit, you said in one of your interviews that you were not surprised actually to see the trolls when people made comments. You just took it because you felt like that means you're more relevant. If people want to say good or bad, that's that point to say. How did you have that mindset already at such a young age to be able to deal with such trolls?
That's such a great question. Um, I don't know. I think it was just how I grew up. It was very diverse. Where I grew up, we have so I'm also myself comes from in China we call ethnic minorities,
Mm.
but in essence there's a lot of indigenous people, and from where I grew up, there are more indigenous people than the we call the Han people, which dominated China throughout history. So I think it was that, like, the diversity I was used to, so the diverse opinions and cultures and things I was used to, and also I wasn't just brought up by my mom and dad. I was brought up by the whole community. I was on different people's backs all the time. So I think that gives a level of capacity. I think a level of um, I guess generosity in accepting ideas and opinions and that. And also my mother she's a very wise woman, and I think I'm very lucky to have brought up by how my mom is an educator. She teaches. She's a teacher. So I think from now I learned a lot too. My mom always says, doesn't matter what you do, always be kind and always be open, always be generous. So I think that's something somehow I packed in my bag wherever I go and wherever I went. It was in me. But I actually, it's so great to hear you say that, because I actually didn't realize that per se. Like I wasn't even aware that much. It's not, you
Yeah.
just go along with your life. Mm.
Yeah, you also served in the Navy. Was that something by choice, or was it because, obviously being to a certain part of the world, you might be called upon to serve? So which one was it? Because when I saw the Navy, I thought,
Ah.
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a maritime university which was associated with the Navy, and it was because when I had to go to university entrance exams, I don't pick universities, I pick locations. So I didn't want to go to Beijing or other big cities, and Shanghai was the city I wanted to go. And then within my marks and my academic ability, that's a school I can go without having to study math, because I really sucked at it by academic level. So that's where I ended up. I think a lot of my life stories is sort of just like I flowed there somehow, and it just unfolded in its wonderful ways. So I went there, and we had to learn how to load unload guns, how to send telegram on the ship. We actually did internship on the ship for 3 months, among with another 295 members on the crew. Worked there for 3 months on the ship, um, wearing uniforms and all this sort of like very, very military managed style. Yeah, that gave me discipline. Like the other day, I was helping a friend to fold um, cushion duvet. I was showing him I can fold the duvet within 20 seconds into a tofu shape with 90-degree perfect perfect corners and everything. So that's one of those like harvests you had after the 4 years of training. Yeah, yeah, in the military. Yeah.
That's truly, Ray. That's truly an amazing skill set to learn. I mean, we the discipline side of things as well. I think is truly fascinating because you did all of that. And when did you decide? Okay, it's time. You were the highest, one of the highest Asian earners in modeling. You were the face of Chanel in Asia. You did all of this, but you decided that this is time. I need to do the tea now. I need to do something that's now my passion. As much as I love what I was doing with modeling, I love the money I was making, I love all of that. But something called you back, and like almost like a string pulling you back and saying, "This is where your roots are, and this is what you need to do." When did this start, and how did you found? And as a found, how did you found the grass people tree?
Mm, yeah, this might take a while actually. um, it was it started with we're shooting a campaign that day and worked 20 hours or more nonstop. If you step into like a photo studio, the surroundings. There's so many people around. There's always some energetic house or techno music going on to keep everyone going, and some limited coffee and Mars bars for you to take. So at some point I felt like I needed to make a green tea, so I went and cleaned the coffee pot and I put the green tea into the pot, and then the leaves just started doing pirouette and dancing in a glass pot, and everyone could see it. And then somebody turned the music off, and everybody gathered around the table and asked me, "What is it?" And even there's a guy walking past our studio, came in and eventually had tea with us because he just said, "What's that? I can smell it. I can smell the fragrance." And to this might sound strange, but that was the first time ever that I worked in the fashion industry for so long. That must have been the 9th or 10th year. The people are genuinely interested in where I'm from, not just looking at my face, whether is too small or my nose isn't perfect or my boobs are too flat or whatever that is. Not the face value, but inside me, what composed me. And so people ask, so where does this green tea come from? It comes from my home. Where is your home? My home is in Guizhou. What is Guizhou? And then we searched it online, and then it came this avatar image of mountains and the different settings. People just so wowed by it. So like it just came question after question. And then it turned into a weekly gathering we have within the fashion industry. The people would gather on the Thursday. You're a Londoner, Thursday usually is the biggest party day.
The pub, we can
Um,
go out and have our drinks and enjoy ourselves.
so instead of going to party, we would drink tea and support one another. So we sort of found an oasis within the very demanding, fast-paced industry. And I think that went on for about 6 months or so until I ran out of tea to give, literally, and to share. And one of my friends said, "Well, maybe this is your way to open another door." Because at that time, particularly, I didn't really enjoy working in fashion, because there's only so much you could do as a model. And at one point I would go on set, and when you walk on set, your makeup, everything was done, you just stand there and nobody would tell you what's happening, and you just stand there like a vase or like a lamp, and nobody would ever ask you other than, are you cold, do you want a break? So I think it's I wanted something a bit more different, I think, at that point. And also growing older, I think you have more questions about yourself and where you're going to go and where you come from and the meanings of things. So I was in the stage of exploring all of that, where I don't think fashion industry was there to provide me those things I was looking for. So yeah, and I just packed my bag, I went back home, and I'm very anal when it comes to learning. So I would get to the bottom of things, and a bit like a Virgo, I would really go into it. So even though I come from there, but I went and traveled around 280 villages in my province alone, and I realized the diversity and the richness of cultures, of different languages, dialects, and landscapes, people, everything, and even just tea tree. There's so many different kinds that are indigenous just in my hometown. So it was me going back. What was planned for, 6 months turned out to be 2.5 years of back and from. And I went in deeper and deeper. I had this whole pile of notebooks that I took from different people. And that was the time then I traveled around and realized the indigenous wild and ancient tea trees are really in danger. And the cultures around those tea culture, around the tea trees, they, because of mass production and the speeds that we live in nowadays, and that just really somehow resonated with me. And I decided that was what I was going to do. I'm going to share wild ancient indigenous tea with the rest of the world, and that's what I'm going to do. And grass people tree, the name comes from the word cha, because in Chinese, when you say cha, tea, you have to write grass on top, people in the middle, and tree at the bottom. So grass, people, tree, the three elements come together, becomes the word tea. And and this is a word that comes from some 2,200 years ago, of the understanding of tea would only exist when there's a balance between people and nature. So if you take people outside of the context of nature, it's not a tea. But if you take nature out of context of that, it's not a tea. So I think it's a very important ancestral message for all of us to understand. Tea is not just in the tea bag. It says so much more and so much deeper, but also very simple, the message just between human and nature. And so that's the intention of naming a grass people tree, but also it's just how we call tea cha. That's how it came about.
That's truly amazing. I mean, the name grass people tea and grass people tree actually. So initially when people perceive, you think it's grass people tea, but it's actually grass. I just see that. Yeah, actually grass people tree. I see, and that's really a subtle way to call tea. It gives you something to think about, and I like the name. I'm glad you started this, but this led on to a lot of curiosity within yourself, because when you're doing something like this, there's a lot of curiosity. What am I actually doing? What actually is the tea that people are drinking? So, can you describe your relationship between the relationship between tea and the holistic wellness in general?
This is a very big topic. So
Just
I'll
talk,
try and
just in a very
yeah.
simple way.
I think ultimately, by its essence, is asking us to pay attention. I think, and also the intention, asking us our intention of doing things. So paying attention means awareness, means presence. So to give you an example, if you ask me, what tea should I drink? I would ask you, how are you feeling? And then you think about it, and then you become aware of what you need in this very specific time and frame, and your location, the time of the day, where you're at. Because we are just like nature, we're constantly changing. But I think today, as we live in modernity, we're so out of touch from the pace of nature. So I think in terms of the well-being, I think is connecting us back to be in tune with nature and to be aware of that. So you may say to me, oh, Ray, yesterday I had a really long day and I didn't sleep very well. So at this particular moment, and I'm about to go on an interview and I feel a bit drowsy. So now I will say, oh, drink a master's green, which is a green tea that we have. Drink a green tea that will give you an energetic feeling, but it also will make you will open up and make your head, your brain a bit more smooth. So if you say, oh, I've eaten a really heavy lunch, um, the leftover from yesterday, I felt like something, something made me feel a bit lighter. Okay, then drink a slow mellow yellow, it has a very special enzymes to help you digest, but it also has a very quiet energy to help you, also your body, to help the metabolism to go in its own natural way. So I think in terms of the wellness, I think for us is really paying attention to be just to be us. And in Chinese, my teacher sitting here, my teacher, he would say to me, a good tea means you and the chair becomes one. What does that mean? It means it makes you feel comfortable. And what does it mean to feel comfortable? In Chinese, we say 自在. 自 means to be, to yourself. 自 means yourself. 在 means to be. So to be with yourself is to feel comfortable is to be with yourself. So I think it's creating those moments and space and time where you can connect with yourself inwardly and with everything that is around you. So for example, eating in tune with nature, drinking in tune with nature, and knowing what your nature is. We have so many female customers have cold hands, cold feet. Then we will ask them, because we also run holistic health workshop based on the Yellow Emperor's internal classics, which was the sort of the ancestor of Chinese traditional medicine. So we asked them these questions. Okay, do you eat salami? Do you eat sashimi? Do you eat sushi? Do you drink milk straight out of the fridge? Do you eat a lot of salad? Do you go out and run in your shorts and vest top in winter? So all of these little lifestyle choices lead us to have certain constitution. But we are so focused on nowadays on productivity, on the so-called wellness, but then we sort of lose touch with what we're in terms of nature's pace. So I think that the more we ask ourselves these questions, the better, well-informed decisions we will have made. And then tea is a really good way to get us back to ask these questions. Even to say, okay, today do I make a strong tea or a light tea? That's a choice you have to make based on how you're feeling. So I think ultimately tea is there to help you ask questions and to give very, very honest answers, just for yourself. Yeah.
And you said, yeah, I like that beautiful answer. It really goes in deep because it makes you think. It's true. The reason you have tea most of the time is because your body's feeling a certain way. So you want a digestive tea, you want anxiety tea, you want a no, relaxing tea, go to sleep tea, all kinds of tea, and something that we don't even associate it, that is also building up our wellness. The one thing I see from what you're doing with your tea company now is that now you're bringing out the tea from China, you're bringing it to the Western world. For example, we have it here in London. You sell these tea here. London is a former colony. China is a former colony of the United Kingdom. And how are you healing that relationship through tea?
Mm, mm. That's such a great question to ask. Um, I think to me is about clarification, because the English, the tea that we understand now only the recent 200 or so years. Yet tea has existed for more almost 5,000 years. So any curious person in the world will ask, what happened to those 4,900, 700 years history then? Why nobody was there to tell us? What happened? Why?
Mm.
So I think for me is to clarify what tea means. Tea means grass, people, tree. Tea doesn't just mean because for Chinese people, tea just means one plant, Camellia sinensis. So there's a lot of clarification in terms of how we call tea, where 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 does this calling the name of tea comes from, and what are we referring to? Because I have a lot of people who say to me, oh, I love tea, I drink tea. Um, but then we realize we're talking about different things. So I think for me is to bring, I guess, a version of a story back to the narratives. So tea is not just about tea bags. It's not just about mass production, industrialization. It's not just about tea bags, milk and sugar and cakes in Fort and Mason or wherever that is. Tea also means this. Tea also means it can mean that tea is made in tune with nature. Tea means that it's been foraged from a wild plant and comes back and made in the course of 50 days without the help of machine. Tea means the indigenous people dancing have their rituals and folk stories of tea, and tea means diversity, inclusivity, means connectivity, all of these things. So I think it's sharing a different story in tea, and by doing so encouraging other people, not just about tea, about anything, to really tell their stories. Because I think we're living in a world that we're so lack of diversity because of the white cloud that's overshadowing us. And I think the more we bring in the diversity of our narratives, the more ownership we'll take of our own stories. And then we can inspire more people to do the same. And the more diversity we bring in, the less difference we see in each other. And the less difference we see in each other, the more humanity we can bring in. And I think that actually can serve a lot of crisis that is going on in the world right now. So I think that colonized history is limiting to how we think things should be or can be. So I think it's just about adding another meaning to it, and hopefully others will do the same, if not more.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's a really beautiful answer. How can we heal, overcome pain by drinking good quality tea?
You mean physical pain?
Um, I think more mental pain, more
Mm.
pain, because I think physical pain is always so difficult to heal, physical pain, especially if you're not willing it. One thing I love about tea, whenever I drink tea, I feel relaxed. I
Mm.
help you answer that question. Whenever I drink tea, I feel really relaxed, and even if I'm forget, I feel like I have a chronic illness, and I feel like the chronic illness is about to start. Whenever I drink tea, my mental state also relax. It relaxes me, and my mental state changes because I'm now relaxed and I'm able to face the day. Like for example, if you're feeling tired when you drink tea, I think you feel yourself in a more calm method because the tea has helped you to go take a nap. And when you wake up, you feel fresh. So that your mental state is now fresh. I'm ready to deal with the world.
Mm.
How do you
Mm.
feel when you drink tea?
How, sorry, can
How
you
do
ask me
you feel?
again the last question?
Yeah, how do you feel when you drink tea?
Oh, it depends on different days. I think um, sometimes I feel like I need a cuddle.
Yeah.
Then I go and drink a warming tea. And like you said, sometimes I feel like I need to be relaxed and I go and drink a white tea. So I think there's once you build up a relationship with different teas, then you know the resources. But then I think those are external things. The internal thing is to trust that you have the knowledge to know what to do. And I think to in the question, in response to pain, I think it's like anything is to be honest, is to be honest, to acknowledge that the pain is there. And then, and I think it's about, a lot of people think we have pain and we have to do something. But I actually think it's about not doing, it's the non-action. So sit with the pain, for example, make a tea for the pain, offer a tea for the pain, drink with the pain, and see the pain or the fear, whatever there is, as the person who drink tea with you, make peace. And I think within that breathing, within the sipping, within the acknowledging, then pain isn't an enemy anymore, it becomes your friend. And so is fear, it becomes your strength. So I think it's like I said in the beginning, I think tea asks you to be honest, because you have to ask these questions. How am I feeling? If I feel pain, I can't say I'm not painful. You have to deal with it by not doing anything, but just sitting with it. So I think it's making a tea is a gesture. You know, when there's a guest come to your house, you say, oh, I put a kettle on, and you go and make a cup of tea. Imagine today comes the friend fear. Today comes the friend pain. You make a tea regardless. It doesn't matter what they are. Don't discriminate your friends. Just make a tea and have a tea with them. And I think you cultivate that friendship. Mm.
That is so beautiful. I think I would definitely do that. I will practice that mindset. This is truly amazing. And I really hope anyone who listens will pick this bit up, because it's really teaching you a mental bit where to, rather than run away from your pain, you sit with it and let it be and make friends with your pain as well. This is true. Yeah, I love how you just addressed that bit. I have some key question, funny, simple answers to ask you here.
Mm.
Right way to drink tea. What's the right way to drink tea?
You ask all the greatest questions I normally want people to ask. Um, it's a tricky question because there's no right or wrong. There's just whether you're there to listen or not. Earlier we talked about, you know, the right way, the when you feel like you have a good tea, how do you identify good tea? Is you feel comfortable, you feel like, ah, I don't want to go and do the spreadsheet now. I don't want to care. I don't want to care about the time. I'm just here with the tea. I'm just here with myself. So that's the right way to drink tea. We have to put the word right there. But I think it's about acknowledging what it is. So let's say this tea, right? This tea that you see is actually 3 teas combined from the last 3 days. So the reason I do it is because the 3 of them combined, it gives me a certain way of feeling. And you do it this way because I do it this way because I'm on the road, and I brew it this way because also I'm traveling. So it's not because it's not, you know, I don't drink tea in a tea ceremony way like this every single day. It's by asking myself what's best now. I'm traveling, and I need to drink this water to keep me dehydrated. It needs to be convenient. So this now for me is the right way to drink tea. But then if I feel like I need to sit with myself, like right now I'm going through a lot of changes in my life. There's a lot of time I drink tea with myself, that I sit down and I make the tea ceremony set, and I just do it, pay attention. So it's like a meditation in motion. And at that particular moment, for me to calm down, for my thoughts to fall away, that is the right way to drink tea. So I think it's by asking yourself the question, okay, where am I at now? And then facilitate yourself with options. And then there's no right or wrong way. And even in terms of brewing, you know, like English loves setting standards, loves standardization, and they're brilliant at it. So when we approach tea nowadays, there's 85 degrees for 1 minute for this tea, 70 degrees. So people are very cautious about, particularly if their tea are expensive or very hard to find, they don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
But where I grew up, there isn't such a thing. So we actually think and do, like if a tea doesn't stand the test for boiling water, it either means the tea doesn't grow properly or is not made properly, or the two combined. So in terms of the technicality of brewing tea, there also isn't a right or wrong way. Just trust your intuition. So if you want the tea to be stronger, brew it longer. And if you want the tea to brew slower, you put less, like the lower temperature. All of the things you just figure out, right? So I think is trusting us, our internal ecosystem and our internal intuition has the knowledge to provide us. And also to know that making mistakes, if there's such a thing, is part of the process. Let's say you make a green tea this time is really bitter. And the next day when you make it intuitively, you just think, oh, I'm gonna brew it less time this time, or I'm gonna throw less leaves in and see what comes up. Instead of blaming yourself and say, I'm not doing it right. There's no such a thing. And then there's no one can tell you that this is the only way you can do it. Otherwise, it's not the right way. About tea brewing, about anything in life, there's no authority can come and tell you that. So it's about trusting yourself and knowing that you own this. You own the way of brewing, you own the right way of drinking, you own everything because you know you are yourself. So I think there's that message, but there's that message there. It depends on how deep you want it to go when it comes to drinking tea and brewing tea and appreciating it.
Yeah,
Mm.
right. I think that's a great way to look at it, because sometimes I look, my tea is not strong. I should put more tea back in. So sometimes you start off having arguments with your tea, but this is just teaches me you don't really have to do that. You just have to listen to it and follow what works for you. My final
Mm.
message question for you is, there's so much tea in the Western world today, and so many people are in search of the perfect tea. It's very, very difficult to get good tea that actually works, and just nature, tree that really is nature. What is your hope? Which with your company, you're doing so much with your tea is very authentic, real. What is your hope to bring quality tea to more Western, across the Western world?
Mm. My hope isn't about what grass people tree can do. I think my hope is about encouraging the community to ask questions. So to give you a very simple example is if we don't talk about us grass people tree, but everybody, tea consumers, let's say, conscious tea consumer, if everybody could go to their retailers, whether it's a shop or online shop, whatever it is, to ask, where does this tea come from? Who make them? And how much money you paying them? How did they get here? All these questions. And the retailers, they don't necessarily have to have the answer, but it urges them to find out. So the more transparency we urge people to create this bigger environment, the more hopeful we can get, I think. Because I think if we ask these questions, then retailers go and find out. But it has to start from consumers, because we have the power to influence the whole chain, whatever industry that is, and whatever consumption sort of level we're at. And if we ask these questions, the narratives will come, and the right way will come. In nowadays, even in the UK and so many Western way of selling tea, 铁观音, it means 观音 is a bodhisattva, is a sit underneath the Buddha. And we still have the culturally appropriating way of translating it. There's so many of them. So even just by us asking, why is this called this way? Why can't we just call it 铁观音? It's not really that hard to pronounce. And if as an educator, as a retailer, if you tell the story, customers are going to want to know. But I think it's about customers showing their interest in wanting to know, and then that will make the whole chain to change, and then including all these stories that ultimately really empower people at the bottom picking, making, transporting these teas. So I think that is my hope to encourage people to ask more questions. But I can't really say, I don't think I think my power is too small in terms of changing the big thing. We all have to come together and do it together. Yeah.
No, but Ray, I think sometimes we start little by little, like you talking to me, that gave me an insight to ask, and we don't know. One person tends to make a difference, and I think you've made a tremendous amount of difference in with the tea, understanding of tea, the importance of tea, and not just drinking it, but also understanding how it really helps in our own wellness. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me. Thank you. Thank you.